Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm AndyRC and today I'm checking out the Jumper X68. This is a brushless tiny whoop, and it actually is this time. There have been many products come out that have tried to achieve this sort of thing, but I think this has got to be the best one so far, because here I have a King Kong Tiny 6, and as you can see, form factor almost identical. I do think that the X68 is just a little bit bigger, but not by much. Pretty incredible what they have managed to achieve with this. Now, it's quite a pricey model actually, so is it worth getting it? Well, there have been a few reviews out there already of this, and it's been a very mixed bag. Me personally, I've actually had a really good experience with this one. It's the DSM to DSM-X version. Also comes in a FR Sky version as well, so I don't know if that makes a difference. But yeah, recently I reviewed the Dust X58, and I had problems with that one browning out. I had to switch the connector out. Didn't have the problem with this, so yeah, pretty impressed with what they have managed to achieve. Now, do I think that you will have any benefits of getting the brushless version rather than a brushed version? Probably not. However, if you go to events where they race these and everyone's got a brushed version and you turn up with a brushless, I don't know, maybe you're gonna turn some heads up. I don't know what people get up to, but there you go. So yeah, I'm not sure there are many benefits. Maybe the motors, you could say that the motors will last longer, but I'm really not sure they will, because in order to get the same form factor, they have had to mount the motors underneath here. So the quadcopter actually sits on its motors, which is not very good, and I think might be the reason why some people have been having problems with it, because if this sits on the ground like that and the motors get caught on the ground, then they're going to get stuck, and that's going to put unwanted load on the ESCs, and it could possibly burn something out. So what I've been doing is the box that it comes with, this is the box, very tiny, and it's tiny because you don't get much with it. I've been sort of propping it on the corner there, and then all of the motors are free. And so far, you know, I've had probably, maybe 15, 20 flights with it, and I haven't had any problems, so yeah. I like it so far. Right. So let's talk about some of the specs then. So it weighs 35 grams with this battery, which is heavier than one of these, so we're usually looking at about 21 grams here with this one. So yeah, a little bit heavier than these guys, but that's fine because we've got more power. Right, and then we have got this battery that they have provided. You're only given the one battery, and I didn't receive a charger with mine. I don't know if they have missed it, but I haven't got one. So actually I'm using the EVPeak E6 charger that I reviewed recently. It's a great charger. This is really like it. Can charge 4 at the same time, and I've been using different batteries as well. So the Hobson 500 milliamp battery, you know, the ones in the blue sleeve that we use, those fit in there nicely, and yeah, they perform really well. But this one is a 350 milliamp 25C battery, micro Lossy. As I say, I didn't get any brownouts. The only thing that I did get though is a strange characteristic. When the battery gets low, it becomes really unstable and almost like you don't have full control. So maybe sort of like a half brownout or something like that. But anyways, yeah, that's the battery, fits in there. Multiple batteries go in there. Like I say, the 500 milliamp one does, might give you a bit extra flight time. Flight time, I was getting about 3 minutes 20 with this, so not bad at all. Definitely on par with an actual tiny whoop. So we have an F3 Evo flight controller here with its 3.5 amp D-Shot 300 ESCs built into it. It's just incredible. There's definitely been some compromises in order to get it into this form factor though. For example, if you want to change the Betaflight settings on there, we're going to have to take the top off. And if you've got the FR Sky version as well, the receiver sits under there and there's a bind button, so you're going to have to take the top off no matter what. But we have got a built-in 25 milliwatt 32 channel VTX in here, which is crazy. See there as well, we've got a little connector for that. So this is for the 5.8 gigahertz there. And then you might see, now it doesn't come like this out of the box, I've got my DSM to DSMX antenna sticking out the top there as well. I definitely recommend that you do that. You don't need to drill a hole or anything, it just comes out of these vents there. But I was getting dropouts without doing that flying around the house, so that's something worth considering. So we have got this little board down here as well with dip switches. That is to change the channels on the VTX. However, there's no instructions with this whatsoever. There's a manual online on Banggood, but it still doesn't detail what these dip switches do and which frequency they select. So it's going to be trial and error with that. And then we have got some more dip switches on here as well to the side. And again, this is relating to one of these. You might be able to see there. So a infrared LED there, and supposedly this is used for, you know, lap times and stuff like that, but again, no information. All it says on the manual on Banggood site is that it will pair with the USB device that you are given. Well, I didn't get given any sort of USB infrared device, so I think perhaps that is for just the board that they are selling, I don't know. But anyways, yeah, like I say, though, it's a F3 Evo flight controller with Betaflight flash to it, so that is pretty cool. The motors here, they are the 0703 15,000 kV motor, and then we have got the tiny whoop style props on the top there as well. So they're a 4-blade though, rather than them being a 3-blade there, but it flies pretty good actually, like that, nice and stable. So yeah, we have a camera up the front as well, and this plugs in directly to this flight controller VTX combination as well. The only thing that I noticed here is just look how the motors are mounted. It looks like we have got some screws on there, but you can see that this thing flexes quite a lot. It does have some extra bridges in here for strength, and like I say, I've flown this a lot, I've crashed it a lot, nothing's broken yet, and there are some spare parts for this as well. But yeah, pretty unusual way to mount it, but like I say, we're trying to keep this form factor here, which is almost identical, isn't it? So that's why they've done that, and it didn't really cause any problems for me. We also have a slight tilt on these ducts as well. I don't know if that's on purpose or just a result of the flight controller going in tight, but yeah, it doesn't affect how it flies. So we've got 2 screws on the top here to get this canopy off, so let me take that off and show you, because we also need to plug in the USB to configure Betaflight. Now, they give you this in the box. This is the only USB device you are given, and it's got one of these little 1mm, I think it's 4-pin, is it? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4-pin cables, and you have to plug that in, but you have to take the camera out in order to do that. So like I say, a bit of a compromise there. But anyway, let's get these screws out. Okay, so both of those screws are out, and this canopy just lifts up here. Now, just looking at the camera, it's one of those 3-gram cameras that I recently installed actually on my Pico X. It's had the microphone removed, so I don't think we're going to get any sound out of it unless there's a built-in microphone on here somewhere, but I can't see one just looking at it. And I've just noticed here actually, look, the ground has come unsoldered from the camera, so I'm going to have to take all of that out and solder it back in. That's that pin in the middle there, that's an absolute pain, isn't it? So you can see there that the camera plugs into these pins there. And if this was the FR Sky version, there'd be a receiver here bigger than this with a button on it, but as this is DSM to DSMX, and it's a smaller receiver, and this is the antenna there that I just poked through the canopy. Now, this receiver, it doesn't need a bind command in the CLI. What it does is, after a few seconds of being plugged into the battery, then it starts to flash. So this is looking for a bind, and then after a while it flashes quick, and then that is when you can bind it to your transmitter. Now, you have to plug the battery in for the receiver to boot up. If you plug the USB in, then the receiver doesn't boot up, so you might want to plug the battery in for doing that. Now, how do we get Betaflight configured? Well, you can see there, this is where the camera goes in. Well, I'm going to have to remove this camera here, so remember that the white wire is facing the back, so I'm just going to pull on that there, and that should come out. And then with this cable here, you see we've got these tiny pins there. They don't fit on at the same time, which is a shame. So that is just going to plug into there, and then that'll go into your computer then, and then you can configure Betaflight. Now, the only thing that I did in Betaflight is I changed the mode, so it was set up just for angle mode on the auxiliary one. I have changed it so that I've got angle mode, and then also acro and air, and I think that's the only thing I changed. Oh, also the super rate I changed to 0.8 as well. It was 0.7 out of the box. Motor stop was turned off out of the box, which is surprising, but there you go. That's how you configure it into Betaflight there. A little bit fiddly, and you have to remember which way this pin goes in there. The way that I remember is it's these little tabs here, they face out, and then with the camera that faces inwards, so that's how I'm remembering it. So another thing I'm not seeing here is a bootloader pad anywhere. It's not marked, I'm sure there is one, so I'd be very reluctant to upgrade the version of Betaflight on here just in case it bricks in the process, because I don't see no bootloader button, aka unbricking button. And I've looked underneath the receiver as well. The receiver's quite interesting. It's actually soldered direct on some pins. So yeah, that's pretty cool, but yeah, no bootloader button that I can see. Anyways, what I need to do, well, is resolder this for a start, so I'll be careful when, you know, tugging the wires, etc. They do feel to be silicone though. You can actually save a bit of weight by getting rid of this canopy. You can't change the camera angle, it's screwed in there. You'd have to modify it if you wanted to do that. But if you took the camera out there and just plonked it on the top, then you'd save a little bit of weight. So, you know, that's something worth considering if you are getting this thing. You can see the little LED on the back as well. I'm not sure that was necessary, to be honest. A little bit of extra weight there as well if you want to desolder that if you're never going to use it, but there you go. Well, these are definitely not the conditions to be testing a tiny whoop out in. But anyways, if I can just show you the punch, then it has achieved something. So, very windy today. In angle mode, and let's just try the punch. So, I would say more punch than an actual tiny whoop, so a brushed model. It hovers on quite a high point on the throttle stick, about 60%, but once you get past that 60%, sort of got more punch, you know. So a higher hover point, but more power. Really stable considering the wind today here as well. See if I can get it close to the camera. Obviously much more noisy than a tiny whoop. It's got this real high pitch zing to it. I don't know if that's going to come through on the camera. It does acro as well, but I wouldn't like to try that indoors. Oh, it hit the ground. Yeah, it's really windy and getting blown about, and probably too small for me personally to do line of sight acro. Maybe if it was like really calm. There we go. Just need to be quick with it. Yeah, it does do acro, but I think it's gonna be much more fun to fly indoors than out here in this wind. So let's bring it in for a landing. You might have noticed that I took off on the box there. That is so that the motors aren't touching anything, because I could see something burning out if one of the motors gets stuck. But anyway, you can see I can be really accurate with this. Let's come in for a landing. Tried to get it on the box but failed. So I actually tried doing some FPV outside before taking it indoors and trying some in there, and it managed it okay actually, considering, you know, a very windy day. Nearly smacked into the bin there. And one other thing that's interesting is they have actually played with the PIDs, so they're not the stock PIDs, but you'll see they're a little bit of a wobble in acro mode. They're not terrible, but I think they really designed this model to be flown in angle mode indoors. You know, like I say, they didn't have acro set up. I had to go in there and unlock it. But it does do acro, it's got the power, even in this wind. I don't think I'd want to do acro indoors though. I don't think you'd have enough headroom unless you've got a lot of space, like in a warehouse or something like that. Now, the video quality was actually pretty good. I'm actually using a new diversity system here. This is the Holy Bro diversity system that I'm going to be doing a review on at some point. So a little bit of breakup because we just have the dipole antenna there, but not bad at all. As for range, I would say you're probably good for 50 to 80 meters. I wouldn't push it any further than that, outside at least anyway, because it does not have a buzzer on there. We don't have a voltage buzzer either. So I would just set a timer for your flights. Like I said, I was getting about a 3-minute, 20 to 4-minute flight. So you might want to set a timer for 3 minutes. And you don't want to lose this one in long grass because you're never getting it back otherwise. Actually, you might get the beacon on the ESCs, but the ESCs are not very loud. They don't make a loud beeping noise when you plug it in, so that might not be any good. Anyways, I wasn't really enjoying flying it outside because it was just too windy, so I bring it in for a landing here, and I'm going to take it indoors because it thrived indoors. It was a much better flyer, and one thing that I got from flying it indoors is it's just really accurate actually. A lot of these times when you fly tiny whoops indoors and you sort of give it too much throttle, they tend to stall and they sort of start to yaw on their own. That didn't happen with this at all. You've got that little bit of extra power, so maybe, you know, you will benefit there over a original tiny whoop. But I think a lot of people who like are really into tiny whoops, they're probably putting their own custom motors on there and stuff. But yeah, I really enjoyed flying this in the house. Actually, you know, like I say, video reception was good. I like looking in reflective surfaces because I find that really odd when I'm flying with the goggles. So yeah, these are my Dominator HD3s that I'm using here, and this is the DVR from it. Yeah, I find it really bizarre when you sort of look in the mirror and you see like a quadcopter and not yourself. But you can see here, you know, it's a brushless model. I'm flying it indoors. This area is newly decorated, and if this wasn't a tiny whoop, I would never fly down here. But I'm completely protected. I even clipped one of the walls here and it didn't do any damage, so, you know, that is why we like these tiny whoops. So yeah, like I say, there were some reviews out there that were saying, oh, you know, this one, it's got problems, and I found that it didn't. You know, maybe I got lucky. I've been so unlucky recently with products, you know. But I've been enjoying flying this one, what can I say? So it seems a little bit of a lottery. Just look at this little space that I can get into. One problem that you do have with this model though is if the motors touch the ground at any point, it can ground the model because, you know, you're actually stopping the motors. So yeah, that didn't really happen to me though. And when I was doing a line of sight flight, it hit the ground and I was still able to get enough momentum to fly again. But yeah, that is a little bit of a problem with this, and it was a problem with the previous version as well, the way they have mounted the motors there. It's not ideal, but it's what they've had to do. Here we go again in the mirror. Just, yeah, it's really fun. So yeah, there's a couple of LEDs on this, but they're all on the board, so you can see there. I think it's got a blue LED at the front and green at the back. But again, just look at this tiny space that I can fly this into and have full control. Another reflective surface there. There's a really tiny space, that is. It doesn't come across on this video, but yeah. Yeah, I like it. You know, whether you want to get it or not, that's up to you, really. Like I said, I don't see much difference between this and an actual tiny whip other than the novelty of it. And yeah, other than that, I like it. You don't get a lot of stuff with it. I would have liked to have seen some spare props. I would have liked to have seen an extra battery, especially for the price, I think. But yeah, so I think that will put people off, especially when you can get that Tiny 6 model with all those batteries and all of the spare props, etc. But there are spare parts for this, and I will link the spare parts in the below, as well as this model as well. So there you go, that is my review of the Jumper X68. It's about to lose control as the battery runs out. So, as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.